Emile and his dad Francois had a classic father-son spat during a traffic jam. Emile, the stubborn teen he is, refuses to come along, making them late. In a dramatic move, he stormed out of the car, with Francois on his heels. Suddenly, they noticed an ambulance shaking like a washing machine on a spin cycle. Something inside screamed, and the windows shattered. Francois yanked Emile into hiding just as a bizarre half-bird, half-man creature emerged, sending everyone into a frenzy. Security officers tried to wrangle the mutant, but it fought back and escaped. Later, Emile and Francois visited the hospital, where Emile's mom, Lana under the doctor's care, was also starting to sprout feathers and claws. It turns out that over the past 2 years, widespread mutations have turned people into violent, animalistic beings. Authorities were working to detain and study them in specialized institutions, hoping for a cure. Most people feared the mutants and demanded they be locked up. Emile avoided his mother, but Francois was all about family unity and insisted they stick together. They planned to move to a new, advanced center in the south, eager for a fresh start away from the gossip mill. In Lana's room, Emile noticed scratch marks on the walls and kept his distance, while Francois chatted away, believing it helped. Weeks later, they relocated near a forest. Emile started school, dodging Nina's inquisitive questions by lying about his mom's death and blaming his scar on a lightning strike. One stormy night, Emile was startled by a creature peering into the house, but it vanished when the power came back on. The following day, an emergency call led them to the local lake, where authorities had cordoned off the area. An ambulance with Lana in it had crashed into the lake, and a police officer retrieved the body of a dead mutant, sending chills down Francois' spine. Desperate, Francois started searching for Lana. Officer Julia, always the optimist, suggested Lana might be lurking in the forest. Back home, Francois started hanging clothes in the trees, hoping Lana would catch a whiff and find her way back. The next day at school, Emile had his own adventures. During a tug-of-war game, his team collapsed like a house of cards, except for him. Somehow, he managed to hold on long enough for his team to regroup and snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. His classmates, now impressed, invited him to a party. However, Emile had bigger fish to fry. Obsessed with inspecting his fingers, he rushed home, grabbed a pair of tweezers, and cried out in pain as he extracted tiny claws from under his nails, a sure sign of his mutation. Seeing his increasingly bird-like reflection in the mirror, he went on a rampage, throwing items around his room before finding solace in the tub, his comforting dog by his side. Meanwhile, Francois ran into Julia again, learning that the search for Lana was being halted in favor of military intervention. Their conversation was cut short by screams, as a mutant had been spotted. Julia began evacuating the area, while Francois hoped it was Lana. Alas, it was just a squid mutant hurling shrimp before fleeing. Julia managed to apprehend her despite the seafood barrage, while Francois discovered another mutant but decided not to call in the authorities. That Friday, Emile attended the party and had a blast. His classmates admired some swords brought by a presenter for an upcoming festival. But the fun took a turn when Emile, after a few too many drinks, fell ill and collapsed. Nina assisted him, but Emile's body had other plans. He involuntarily licked her hand, freaking everyone out. Embarrassed, he fled into the forest, where he heard unsettling mutant noises. The next morning, Emile found himself near the lake and spit out blood. On his way home, he saw anti-mutant graffiti. Once in the bathroom, he vomited a feather. He realized he had eaten a bird. Undeterred by police barriers, Francois and Emile continued their search for Lana in the forest. Emile asked Francois how he felt when Lana changed. Francois said he wasn't scared. She was still his wife, just different. They spent the night in the car, playing Lana's favorite song loudly. At dawn, Emile noticed his nails changing again. Suddenly, his dog bolted, prompting Emile to chase after him. He stumbled upon a chameleon child in a tree, but before he could react, the Birdman from earlier tackled him, slashing him with claws and wings. However, Birdman froze upon realizing Emile was a mutant. Francois rushed to Emile's aid. In the car, Francois suggested the hospital, but Emile refused, fearing exposure. Their argument nearly ended in a collision with a horse, but they arrived at a riding school with Julia's help. Emile received stitches from an army nurse who bought their cover story. Back home, Emile removed the stitches and licked his wound. In lab class, he noticed Nina's feather necklace, causing him to panic, but Nina pushed him away. Shortly, disturbed by squeaking ferrets, Emile yelled at them to be quiet. Later, struggling to ride his bike due to his changing body, Nina offered support and invited him to her house. There, Emile discovered a dead bird in Nina's fridge. She said she had found it after the party and used its feather for her necklace. Emile suddenly remembered he left the dead bird as a gift for Nina. One day, while catching a fish at the lake, a nosy neighbor watched in fascination. Emile then bumped into the Birdman, Fix, struggling to fly. Emile, channeling his inner wildlife coach, offered the fish and suggested a safer practice spot. After clearing some branches from the water, Fix agreed. Emile, feeling clever, left his bike in the forest and decided to tell his dad it was stolen. Meanwhile, at the bar, Francois was having a day. The owner was selling anti-mutant t-shirts, which didn't sit well with Francois. While taking out the trash, he got grabbed by a chain-wielding mutant in the backyard. Trying to calm the situation, Francois noticed another mutant fleeing. A co-worker intervened, revealing the chain mutant as her relative. Their attempt to guide it back only caused more panic as it rushed to the front of the bar. Fearing for Lana, Francois dashed to the forest and found her in bear form before she scampered off. At school, Emile had his issues. During lunch, he unexpectedly spit out a tooth and pretended it was a baby tooth. That afternoon, he visited Fix, who was struggling with flying lessons. In the evening, Julia joined Francois in the forest to search for Lana, evading police cars. They didn't find Lana, but Francois was stunned to discover Emile's abandoned bike. Back home, he found the bathroom sink clogged with hair and claws, realizing Emile was also changing. When Emile returned, Francois confronted him with the evidence, but Emile denied it. Francois locked the house, refusing entry until Emile confessed. Emile tried to flee, but Francois tackled him, embracing him tightly in a moment of despair. The next morning, Emile showed signs of change by eating directly from his plate, but Francois remained supportive. He shared Lana's medicine with Emile to help control his impulses. After confirming Emile's fangs were hidden, Francois reassured him. Francois took measures to help Emile cope with his mutations, including daily nail trimming and using cotton and hair to manage his heightened hearing. He even taught Emile how to use hair removal cream on his body. Later, Emile tested his enhanced hearing by chatting with Nina on the phone and hearing her scream from a distance. The next day, Emile found Fix unable to speak, only making bird sounds. After a hug, Fix demonstrated his newfound flying ability. Later, Emile attended the festival where his father worked, leading to a heated argument that turned physical. Emile bit Francois before retreating, meeting Nina, who suggested a walk through the cornfields. Their encounter turned intimate, and when Nina discovered Emile's physical changes, she accepted him, and they continued. Returning to the festival, Emile headed to the bathroom and was confronted by a classmate who witnessed his encounter with Nina. The classmate emitted a sound that hurt Emile's ears, prompting Emile to attack, scratching the boy's face. Emile fled into the field as the classmate alerted others, inciting them to arm themselves and call the police. A dog tracked Emile, but he scared it off with a bark. When the dog fled, two men opened fire, prompting a chase. Just as a man prepared to shoot Emile, Fix intervened, killing the man with his claws. Fix guided Emile into the forest, but they were pursued by a police car. Emile crossed the lake to stop them, but gunfire mortally wounded Fix. Emile mourned as Fix died in his arms. Francois and the hunters found Fix's body, but no sign of Emile. In the town, army trucks headed to the forest. Emile hid, surviving on fruit and howls during the night from a tree. During a storm, he sought refuge in a cave, startled by an approaching bear, only to realize it was his mother. They shared a moment of affection, bumping foreheads to express their love before Lana departed, urging Emile to follow. Emile complied, discovering a community of mutants living harmoniously, including the chameleon girl. However, flares in the sky signaled the army's arrival. Emile and the mutants attempted to flee, but the soldiers used painful sound frequencies to immobilize them. Only the chameleon girl escaped using camouflage. At the police station, Francois assisted Emile in claiming he was intoxicated and wandered into the forest by mistake. During the signing of release papers, Emile's hand refused to grasp the pen, causing him to inadvertently tear the sheet. When given a new sheet, Emile growled at the officer, prompting Francois to swiftly incapacitate him to prevent an alarm. Seizing the opportunity, Francois signed the document himself and swiftly exited with Emile, evading police pursuit like pros. Francois assures Emile he won't be sent to an institution and speeds toward the forest. As they halt, Francois instructs him to flee. Feeling a sense of freedom, Emile howls as he runs into the woods.